Do you ever find yourself really wanting to grow in your dance journey and you're just stuck and you don't really know what it is you could do better? In this episode, we're going to go over steps you can do to reflect so that you can become a better dancer. Hello, my beautiful, gorgeous dance baby, and welcome to another episode of More Than Dance. Today, we are talking about the invisible muscle of reflection that dancers build without even knowing it. And the reason why I'm talking about this with you today is because I've been in some situations recently where I've thought to myself, oh, wow, like that. I wonder if that person even reflects at all. I think about this in terms of our runs, like when we're running a routine over and over and over again, and we think and we reflect to ourselves about what it is we just did, what could be better, how we can critique ourselves to make the show better, to make the routine better, to make the choreography land better with the audience. So first, let's discuss reflection and how powerful it can be. So one of the reasons why I love to reflect is because I know that our brain plays tricks on us. What I mean by that is when we remember something a certain way, I think I've told you about this before, how like there's been situations in my past where I've remembered something and it was definitely not what that thing was once fact checked or once like seen video footage. And it's because our brain likes to either A, save us. So if you've ever experienced a traumatic experience, it will let you forget that experience. And when it comes time to reflect on it and you really spend time reflecting on it, maybe even someone reminds you or asks you questions to reflect on it, you're like, oh my God, whoa, that did happen. And you're almost like shocked because there's a huge part of you that didn't even remember it. So we can train ourselves to forget things. And sometimes it's because we are not physically ready to reflect on those happenings just yet. Though as a dancer, we have the ability to get immediate feedback, especially from the choreographer, the teacher, whoever's instructing that day, especially if we ask for it. And then 2, our video footage. So if we have the opportunity to film ourselves while dancing, we can see and we can make inferences from our footage. And then 3, just knowing like what it felt like, knowing that something just felt wrong. Now, this is a funny topic, so I'm gonna tell you just a quick little thing. When you're first learning dance, it could all feel awkward. So you might not have that muscle rehearsed where you know what feels wrong, what feels right, like a pro dancer does. So for instance, for me, I've been dancing my whole entire life. When I know something feels wrong, I know that I can trust that that feels wrong versus my beginning students, when they tell me, oh, that feels awkward, and I'm looking at them saying, well, that's the correct way to do it. You did it. There's something that they're building within their body, within their muscle memory, within their head, that is teaching them what is the right alignment, what is the incorrect alignment. So being able to reflect on this might be tricky for them because what they're teaching themselves, and this is why the brain can confuse you, they're teaching themselves that this feels awkward and it might not be right. And they don't really have much to go on. So when you're starting dance, you're starting. You don't have a whole story to go on, meaning you might still be questioning whether you're doing it right or wrong. And that's completely normal in the learning phase. Sometimes it takes that feedback from the instructor to be like, nope, that's right. Sometimes it takes the announcement of, this feels incorrect. What could I do to make this feel better? And already you can see as you're dancing, you're already building the muscle of reflection. So right now, I want you to just think of a time where you have breezed over a moment without proper reflection. Sometimes when I think of this, I think of like when I get into a little like tiff with Joshi and we're just kind of like talking about whatever we're talking about. And then when we say like, oh, well, this happened and then this happened, and we kind of like replay like what went on to make us feel the way we're feeling, we sometimes don't exactly have the facts. And there's obviously going to be a different experience for each person. So what I might feel and what I might reflect on is close to home to me, emotional to me, and it might not be that Josh even is aware of those things yet. And it's my job to do enough reflection to say, okay, from my perspective, this is what happened, and this is what I noticed, and this is what I remember. And then for him to be like, okay, well, this is what happened, this is what I remember, and da-da-da-da-da, right? So if we don't have the muscle of reflection, we aren't able to replay the scenario in our head to either A, have a conversation that is worthwhile, B, know how we really feel about the situation, or C, have enough information to move forward from the situation. So when we're thinking about reflection, yes, we reflect in dance, we critique ourselves in dance, and we also get to do this in every part of our life. So I have a ritual that we do at the studio, and we call it circle time. And what it does is it's kind of like a debriefing. And Josh and I love debriefing. And actually, my whole entire family does. I remember being in college and everyone coming to my show, and we would go out to dinner after and we would talk about what was your favorite routine? Why? What costume did you like? What song did you like? And we would just gather information and debrief and talk about the situation. We do this with experiences as well. So if Josh and we go on a trip, on that trip, you know that we're talking at the end of the day, what was your highlight of the day? You know that at the end of that trip, we're speaking about our highlights of the week, our favorite people that we met, and we're talking about which day felt the best in terms of weather. So we have this catalog of information that we both are sharing together, and also information that we are understanding more about ourselves, the power of reflection. And this is also like if we were to go to a wedding together, we would be like, oh my gosh, did you remember this part? And it can bring out information so that our brain, A, doesn't trick us, and B, doesn't leave us in the dust forgetting really, really fun, important moments. As a dancer, we do this with purpose. So at the end of class, I ask my students, again, what their name is so that everyone can know who's sharing, their highlight and their success. And a highlight is something that they really enjoyed. It could be a move that they love to do. It could be something that they love to see others do. It could be a funny moment in class, or it could be just the fact that they came to class. And a success is what you're probably thinking a success is. So something that they did really well, or it could also be something that they noticed that was really hard that they overcame. And of course, if I had more time, I would ask more questions. And these are the questions that I would ask. After a dance class, you can ask yourself your highlight, your success. You can also ask yourself, where were you getting stuck? And what that information is going to give you is, oh, I keep noticing this trend that I'm getting stuck on parts like this. So I have a few students that get a little some type of way when we have a lot of footwork. And it's almost like they built up this experience towards footwork. So instead of first feeling the footwork and knowing if they're going to have a problem with it, they see, footwork, and they already put their bodies in a sense of, I might not be able to do this. I've seen this before in terms of style of dance. I have a couple students that very much shy away from when we're wearing outfits with sweatpants or outfits with jean shorts. They get intimidated by it because they've experienced it some type of way. They've had an opportunity to reflect on it some type of way. And their brain is tricking them into saying that, remember in math class, those questions, sometimes, always, never? Well, this is something like that. It's like the idea of every time we do footwork, I get lost. That's an always statement. Or every time we wear sweatpants, the dance style is hard for me. That's an always statement. So something I like to do to kind of like F around with them is I will choose to wear sweatpants and then do a completely different routine than they would ever expect to wear sweatpants for. The problem here is their fear, and in actuality, their thought of their incompetency of that style or those areas of footwork is teaching them that they're not good at it. So it's very important that when we're doing our reflection, we're doing it without judgment. So we want just the facts, because facts with judgment leads to stories that are incorrect, false stories, limited beliefs. So when we have a moment where it's like, wow, that was hard for me. I'm thinking about the last class that I took personally. And I remember this moment where it was like just a change of footwork with arms at the same time. And I was tripping up on that. So in my reflection, I would say something like, this class was life. I had so much fun. I would say the highlight was the song. Like I loved the song. I would say a highlight was also watching the instructor go at it. It was so hot. And then a success was I didn't really feel that good that night, and I just pretended like I felt amazing. So I, again, tricked my brain into thinking I was fine, and I was able to execute the movements, the class, the endurance. Another success could have been that I've made dance friends throughout choreography because there was like 2 parts where we could connect with someone next to us and then connect to another person to the other side. So that was like really cute. So that could have been a highlight. That could have been a success. And something that I can work on was maybe that transference of weight. And when you reflect enough to know that you have something to work on, you can find holes in your training and you can understand what you can work on maybe at home, or what you can keep a careful eye out for in other choreographies. So for my student who kind of like goes, oh, footwork, the first step would be that they understand that, okay, it's footwork. They do so without judgment. That's like really important, step number 2. And then 3, they take it step by step and understanding, is it when I'm turning around with footwork? Is it the transference of weight transfer from right to left? Is it that I'm having trouble like keeping the technique when I'm doing footwork? So there's deeper questions to reflect on once you've reflected. So we've got a highlight, a success, something that you felt stuck on. And then another one is, where did you feel like you were excelling? It could be another success, or it could be like something that you feel extra proud of, or even something that just deserves more celebration. Some other thoughts for your questions could be, what surprised me? What felt easier than last time? So it could be like a repetitive movement that when you first learned it, you were like really stumbling on it. And now that you're doing it again, you understand the mechanics of it a little bit better. Another question could be, where did I feel resistance? I see this, actually, I can see physical resistance in my students, and it's usually when they start to question themselves. In fact, I saw this last night. There's a moment where we realize we're not as good as we thought we were going to be when we first learned dance. And that feeling can feel so shocking. And it can feel very defeating, especially when you're all dressed up, you're in the class, you made arrangements to be there, and you realize, whoa, this is going to take longer than I thought to get better at, or whoa, this is harder. They really do make it look easy. I mean, we do. As dancers, we make things look very easy. And when you go to do them, man, they are so not. And you can almost see, like what I see first in my students is their face kind of like, it like hones in. It gets like a little like glassy in the eyes because you can tell they're trying to hold back tears. It's almost like this like frozen face, like they're there, their physical body is there, but their mental is probably just going a mile a minute. And I could imagine that inside their head, they're saying, what are you doing here? You can't do this. And all that imposter syndrome stuff that we talked about. So it can be hard, and that could be a whole other podcast. I mean, we've talked about that before, of like what to do in those instances. And when that person reflects, they can say, wow, look at what you overcame. I overcame the feeling of wanting to leave, and I stayed. I overcame the feeling of knowing I have so much to work on, or in this case, I get to learn and work on so much to get better. And I'm excited to take one thing with me. And at the end of that class, I was able to hear from her that like, wow, I learned so much. And it does take a little power of the mindset to be able to do that. And that's why we talk about learning dance as its own skill, because to be able to turn your brain off and stop being mean to yourself, you get to work on all of these reframes for a better outcome, for a better experience, for an experience where you're not beating yourself up internally and getting to be fully present with where you are now. So typically a reflection will ground you and it will bring you back in touch with reality, because I know that when I'm in a situation where, even the situation I was just telling you about, Josh and I are, let's just say we're in a tiff. We're not. Hi, Joshy, I love you. And we're thinking about things in our own specific ways. We are able to be productive when we know exactly how we feel about what happened. We're able to get more information about each other and learn how to be in those certain moments to our partner, because we've reflected and we know exactly what we need. When you know what you need, you know how to ask for it. This is the same thing for a dancer. When you know after your reflection to be like, whoa, I just noticed that when you did the counts versus the ba-ba-ba, da-da-da-da-da, I didn't get it as much. So I personally like it when you go ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, dee-dee-dee-dee-da, boom-ba, doom-doom-doom-ka. Or it could be like, when you had us face this way, I realized how much I don't know the routine. I realized how much I was like using other people in the mirror So now because I know that, I can check in with myself throughout the routine and kind of look past myself in the mirror and not rely so much on other people so that I know that I'm learning it myself. So again, when we reflect, we have more information. And as a dancer, we get so much practice with reflection and so much practice with knowing ourselves that we A, become better dancers, and B, we become better people because everything becomes a situation of reflection. I think about this in terms of everything that I do. Those things I mentioned to you earlier in this episode. I love going to a show and talking about it with people. I love going to an event and being able to talk about highlights, successes. I love being able to travel and say like what our favorite parts were. And I truly believe that this is all from being a dancer and knowing how important it is to be able to do that to make your life better. Because look at it this way. If Josh and I go on a trip and we both really, truly loved the experience of meeting these amazing people on a boat and then spending the entire day with them, true story, then we know we can make that stuff happen again if we want to. If we know that we loved going to a random bakery at 2 a.m. and staying there until 1 hour before our flight, we know that we can do that again. Another true story. And so what happens when we do this is we just get better at giving ourselves what we love and what we need. So as you're taking your next class, as you're doing your next fun event, I want to encourage you to take these questions with you, your highlight, your success, what were you proud of, what did you feel surprised by, and do some of your own reflection so that you can A, be a better dancer, and B, have a better life. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, it would mean the world to me if you left a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This is the only way the podcast can grow and help people just like you with their dance journey. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the dance floor.